Hello out there. We're on the air. Happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome to day 88. What? 88 days. Pretty crazy. Had to do a special one for this one. I could probably do a full hour talking about my experience, my journey so far with the 88 Satch radio channel. But I wanted to focus on one aspect of it and how this whole channel started. Some of you watching this might be more new and might not have heard the story before. So I'm going to give a real quick summary of how this channel came to be and how you can be thinking about how you can use these concepts and thoughts and just the general idea of it to do something in your own life. So the 88 Sets project itself was started in when the heck was it? January 3rd, 2023. That was the day that this launched. And the project itself is different from the channel. The channel just kind of spawned from that project, and it might make its way back to that at one point. But the idea was, so we got our golf company, your King Golf. Oh, lunch is ready. We got our golf company, King Golf. So we had a decent sized following on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, on all these different things. We had been selling golf products for about 4 years up to this point. And this is kind of when I started getting really serious about Bitcoin in 2023. I had some, I was buying some, but I never really, thought it was going to be this big a part of my life as it is today. And so what I wanted to do is I kind of wanted to blend golf and Bitcoin together. Because this is kind of the point where I was starting to understand Bitcoin and the really long-term view of this. And so I wanted to find a way where I could work it into the golf stuff without being too like pushy or anything, and really trying to change people's perspective on what Bitcoin actually is. Because to the average person, they see Bitcoin as like a very short-term, get rich quick kind of thing. Put $1,000 in today, cash out for a Lamborghini in a month from now. That's how most people who don't understand Bitcoin, how they see it. And when they think about it that way, they think this is probably a scam or a Ponzi or too good to be true. And so I really wanted to just change people's perspective on how they view this thing. And so the idea that I had was I wanted to find a group of people within our King Golf community. I wanted them to buy Bitcoin, to put it all together in this wallet together and sit on it for 10 years. And at the end of that 10 years, hopefully we would have enough purchasing power from the Bitcoin that we bought back in 2023 to be able to purchase our own golf course. And so it seemed like a very crazy idea, still probably does to a lot of people. And I was actually very surprised on how well it was received by the audience. So we ended up selling all 88 shares in about, I don't know, a month and a half. And so we've had 88 people in this corporation. Everybody bought Bitcoin. They didn't send in cash. They actually sent in Bitcoin. So they had to go through the process of that. We have it in a multi-sig now. There's 3 of us or 3 people who have keys to that Bitcoin in geographically dispersed regions. The nice thing about that is people don't have to trust me. There's nothing that I can do to get Bitcoin or to move Bitcoin and to rug people. So I think that is a component if you're thinking about this in your own life, to implement a multi-sig into it. There's a lot to know with that, obviously. And that was a bit of a learning curve for me as well. But anyways, the point of it is it really changed people's view on Bitcoin. It got people to think about this thing as like a longer term thing versus get rich quick kind of thing. But I want you to think about that in your own life. How could you, in your local area, whatever it is, whatever kind of audience or network that you have, what could you do with Bitcoin with the same kind of a vision? As in, people buy now with a very low risk amount. I think it was about $250. And that's another part too. You don't want to be asking for like $2,000 or $20,000, something that the average person could afford. And it isn't going to set them back. It's not going to be a huge risk, because people, even getting into this project, they're like, well, even if this thing goes to zero, which I know it won't, you know that it won't, but they think it still could. And so even in that point, they're like, well, it's $200, $250. What's the worst case? I lose that. That's like a meal at the Keg nowadays, or a meal at what's a fancy restaurant in the US? I don't know. Red Lobster. So it's low risk. It gives people a longer time frame. And if this thing really works out, like, who knows? There might be a Netflix special about this in 10 years from now. But it doesn't have to be golf. It could be a skate park. It could be a dirt bike area, or whatever the hell they are, track. It could be a dog shelter for rescue dogs. If you can get people to buy into this vision, and you can kind of get a crowdfunding set up, it's going to do a lot, I think, for your it could do a lot for your local area. Maybe it's a new curling rink, or a new whatever. We used a golf course in this because, could you imagine 88 people spending $200 back in 2023, turning that into a golf course? Like, that's a crazy idea, crazy concept. If that actually happens, which I think it will, but that's going to be like a really big light bulb moment for people. So that's how this whole thing started. And the reason I wanted to talk about it today is because I really encourage you to be thinking about what you could do in terms of your own 88 Sats project in your area, in your network, using these same principles that we used here, to not only grow the Bitcoin network, but to give yourself, your community, your network, give them a fighting chance here to actually do something in the future. Because even if you think about it like this, imagine if we had 88 people back in 2023, and they all put in $200 or $250. What would that be worth? $20,000 And if you project that into the future and say, okay, we're going to put this $20,000 into a savings account, do you think that anybody would really believe that that could turn into something? It would probably get you half of what it would today. It wouldn't make any sense to hold cash for 10 years. All that's going to do is lose purchasing power over time. Whereas if you flip that on its head and think of that in Bitcoin terms, hey, maybe we could actually buy a golf course. That $20,000 has already turned into almost $100,000 worth of purchasing power in 2 short years. So we're definitely trending in the right direction. People are actually starting to believe that this could become a reality. And the last thing that I wanted to mention on this before I wrap things up here is I had a meeting with a couple yesterday, and they've been into real estate. They have a couple rental homes. I kind of mentioned this on my show a little bit, but not this part of the story. But anyways, she mentioned, like, they don't have any kids, right? So they don't have any kids. They don't have anybody that they're going to pass down their real estate to. They don't have anybody to pass down their Bitcoin to, which can be a bit of a deterrent, I think, for people when they think about Bitcoin and they think, well, if I don't have any kids, who am I going to pass this down to? If this is really a generational thing and I can't pass it down to anybody, what's the point of me holding it today? And basically what I said to her was, like, think about, like, this guy right here. Think about setting up a rescue dog fund with that Bitcoin. And so then even when you die, your Bitcoin will continue to grow over time, and there will be really no end to where that could go for whatever cause you believe in, whether it's rescue dogs, whether it's homelessness, whether it's women's shelter, anything like that. If you apply Bitcoin to that in terms of thinking long-term here. And then she said, yeah, I never really thought about that. Maybe we could use the Bitcoin to, like, buy a shelter or buy a building within 10 years and give it to that charity. And I was like, well, yes, but what you could also think of is, like, you could actually take that Bitcoin to the bank in 10 years and say, here's 1 Bitcoin. I want to use that as leverage or as collateral, buy this building. And so you'd have the building, you'd have the Bitcoin still, and that would be going to whatever cause that you believed in. So you wouldn't have to sell the Bitcoin. You have 2 assets now, and you have the building and you have the Bitcoin, instead of selling the Bitcoin to buy the building. So this whole thing and how this is going to play out in the future, I think, is a real big mind F into the future. And I could just see the light bulb turn on in their head. But nobody thinks like this because Bitcoin is so unique, it's so new, and it's so different than anything else we've ever known before. Just going back to that example of holding 20K in a bank account for 10 years, it's going to melt. And that's the system that we've spent our whole lives in. So when we're thinking about Bitcoin, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense because it is so different than what we've um, known. So I just wanted to give you guys and girls something to think about today in terms of like a project, in terms of like your generational wealth, where you want your Bitcoin to go to once you die. These are the things that you need to be thinking about today and putting things in place for that to happen. That's kind of what I said to her. Is like, life's pretty unexpected. So you shouldn't be waiting on this. You shouldn't be buying Bitcoin and just like hoping that you're going to live for another 30 years. And you might die with your Bitcoin. That's not what you want. You want to be you want to be thinking about this stuff now, putting things into action, putting things into place for when that time comes, it's already going to be built. But these are the conversations, these are the thoughts that you have to have today to build for that future when the time comes. So hope you enjoyed this. That's the 88 Sats project, a little bit more background and what I think we can start applying into our own communities and our own lives here. So I hope you're having a great Sunday. Thanks again for going through this whole thing. I don't say that enough probably, but you're making a real dent, a real difference in the world here by accumulating this, and hopefully we'll be spreading it with other people in the future. So have a great Sunday. Arnie's being a little bit whiny here, so I think he's got to go outside. So we'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.